We are recording.
We are recording. All right, guys. Long time no talk. It's been a few weeks, right?
Right.
That's about a month.
About a month. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're
Yeah.
talking today about. I'm Bronson. We got Jimmy and Jason on here. We started doing this as a temporary thing, talking about men's health over 40. And we decided that we actually like talking to each other, and we kind of can feed off each other, and we have some things in common with the way we think
Yeah,
about
whiskey.
stuff.
We should have
Oh,
whiskey.
this is whiskey. Yeah, this is all whiskey right now.
Bone broth.
Bone broth. There you
Yeah,
go.
bone broth.
I had
Yeah.
electrolytes in mine.
Just
Same
got a
thing,
good
just
old-
different form.
Yeah.
Pre-workout.
Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about today, I think we talk about doing this every 2 weeks. So we'll have a different topic and just kind of keep putting these out. Hopefully they help people. The topic for today is, I think we've all had experience, and some of us have current experience with dealing with youth athletes. I guess we'll just start with, it's a huge industry. There are tons of kids that are playing stick and ball, traditional sports, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey, lacrosse, all the different games, all the different sports. And we can talk about the issues that we see with the training methodologies and how kids are being treated in their sports, with their leagues or their coaches or their trainers or whatever it may be, as professionals who are focused on long-term health. And I think that's where we come in as a little different when we talk about youth sports, because our mentality is health and sustainability, right? We want kids to be able to do things when they're 50 and 30 and 20 and not burn out when they're 13, right? As opposed to, because our goal isn't trying to get them to win games. Our goal is trying to get them to be athletic and healthy, where when you look at a lot of sports performance trainers, their sole purpose is, I want these kids to do the best so that they can win games. Coaches, I want my kids to win games. Parents, my kid's going to make it to college or professional sports. Like all of these high-end goals, when we know in reality that's not happening. Your kid's not going to college and playing sport. Your kid's not going pro and playing a sport. It's just not happening. Unless they're super special in a bunch of different areas, right?
Yeah.
So
one
thinking about all of the things when we talk about youth sports, I guess we can just start with, Jason, why don't you start with, what is the biggest challenge that you have, whether it be talking to parents, working with kids, whatever, in the belief system of youth sports that you feel like that you have to struggle or you're always fighting against?
So I ran chiropractic office in Silver Spring, Maryland for almost 10 years. And a big part of my role in that was working with youth athletics and the county coaches on this sort of issue. And where the project began because the doctor and I kept having young patients, who were 9, 10, 13, 14 years old, presenting with overuse injuries from excessive sport play. And as we talked to the parents and the coaches about our findings, we uncovered this narrative, this this belief between the parents and coaches that pushing the kids through this sort of intense system of hard work and grit and excessive sport play is just part of the culture of most of the leagues, and that if people expressed pain and discomfort and a need or desire to take breaks and recover, they're often shamed and felt isolated. And then you also had the parents and coaches were telling consistent stories that the motivation behind allowing this sort of barbaric's a bit extreme. It's certainly hyperbole, but it does the job, right?
Mhm.
This kind of barbaric system the parents continued to allow for it, and the coaches did the same because they believe that in the end, the strong will survive, and whoever's left standing will then magically end up on a college team, and get a free ride to a university. Um, Now, and so the biggest frustration was in exploring these belief systems, because the reality was that it almost never happened, and all the parents and the coaches ultimately tended to have to show for it was some halfway decent kids and teams, but many kids that were kind of broken and beat up long before they ever had the opportunity to showcase their skills at those levels. Uh,
Yeah, breaking kids early. What about you, Jimmy? What are some of the things that you come up against?
I mean, very similar in a way. Like I, work in an office for 10 years. You see young kids that have these overuse injuries. And really their parents, I'm coming from, he's in Silver Spring. That's Montgomery County. I actually worked in Rockville, Montgomery County. So it's a different mental mindset around that culture in that area where, if your kid is it's like a status builder, where if your kid is not at a level, then the parents are actually going to be shamed. Then the parents put pressure on the kid to perform, and then they shuttle them to practice and then skill drills with another speed coach, or and then that's just one sport. Then they have to do a whole nother sport in addition, just because they have a moment of free time to themselves. And these are like middle school kids that don't have time to be a kid. So I ran into like burnout in that middle school range before they even get to high school. And, I'm treating a kid that has, stress fractures because of continuing pounding out there on the soccer field, and their body just not being able to recover fast enough for the demand that was placed on them, and the pressure of the club team. Like, if I need to perform so I can make this team, so that I could get this look, so I can go to this college, but I'm only in 6th grade. I mean, that was that just really blew my mind when I was like listening to this kid, and I could just see the weight of the pressure that was being placed upon him by his parents. Like the people that you call safe, like this is your, like, these are your people, and they're like pushing you to be able to get to this certain status. And that's what I saw a lot. I mean, and, personally for me, I mean, I came from playing, one sport, growing up through like elementary, middle, I did some karate, I did some baseball. I didn't really get like really focused till high school, until I was 13, 14 years old. I started to hit the gym, and I started to really look at what motivated me. And the motivation was not the external, it was the internal, the intrinsic, like, I want to be better. And like this like shuttling kids from here and there to force them to get better at a sport, then 2-3 years down the road they're going to resent because of the mental stress that has been placed upon the kid has been so enormous that they can't recover. They're in a state of constant stress. And it comes out especially in certain, not all sports, but some sports like travel teams, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, those things are very big. Even football, it depends on what the state. You go to Texas,
anywhere in the Midwest.
You're talking about out the womb, you're going to go ahead and have a football in your hand, So,
and it's not
less.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think that even with with the best intentions, right? Parents are thinking, I want to set my kid up for success and do all these things. And they're not even realizing that they're actually doing the opposite, right? Variation is the key. Like, you need to do things. I was just thinking about something you said and remembering some data and some things that I've seen. I looked it up real quick. I saw this a couple years ago. Urban Meyer, Ohio State coach, right? 80% of all of his athletes played multiple sports in high school. 20% or less only played football. right? So, and then if you look, I'm looking at some other stuff, and that's 80%, 85% seems to be across the board in most professional and college level sports, is that the kid or the person did more than just that sport, right? They had other things. There was no overuse because they had that variety. They did different things. They took some time off. They, and did different things, and that's a huge part of what you need to do.
Season for soccer, like these days, there's none. Like they go club, then they go team, then they go school and club and travel, and they're on like 5 different clubs. Oh my gosh!
Right, and then when it's too cold to go outside, they go indoor, and it's.
What do you get better? Like when I was playing, I played one sport, football, and that was, again, that's seasonal. You can't play that year round, and I'd spent, 9 months out of the year getting my ass as big as I could, in the gym. And that's what helped me prevent a lot of overuse injury, because I spent a lot of time cross training,
right.
And I take that just due to what my passion was. But I didn't have a mom. My mom was like, hey, you quit, it's on you. It's your choice. I mean, you make your choices, you make decisions. I didn't have somebody, pushing me. It was my own motivation.
Right.
And I feel like there's a balance between the two.
Yeah. And parents can understand. I think it will help parents too. A lot of times is they forget. I'm a parent, as you forget sometimes that the more you push your kids into something, the less they want to do it. So the pressure that these parents are putting on their kids to do this is making them enjoy it less and less. So by the time they get to high school, they're like, I hate that. I don't want to do this anymore. Right. The pressure, the expectation, having to do it because when they don't really want it, they don't really enjoy it anymore. All of those things. And here they are still doing it, and doing it more than they need to. So now they're getting hurt. So not only do they not enjoy it, they've got too much stress, they're over expectations, and they're getting hurt. Right. It's just what good is coming from this process. Right.
You get hurt athletes, not just physically, but mentally.
Right.
I find it's interesting, the cognitive dissonance in the culture. Like it seems like mainstream accepts that professional teams, have a season where they perform their sport, and then essentially the rest of the year is used for, preparing the body, healing the body, setting up the day to come where I play my, season of my sport. And yet somehow there's a huge resistance to that model at the youth level, as if somehow like cramming a bunch of years of work maybe into a small window suddenly catapults these children to magically end up at this high level. It's like what? Do you pay attention to the sport that you love and follow at all?
Right. Oh no,
the people that are doing this at the highest level take time off, but you're not there yet, so you don't take any time off. Just kill yourself. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Puberty, you gotta find out, self-awareness, school, find out who you want to be.
Right.
But then also just play, 50 hours a week in your sport.
I like how you said that cognitive dissonance, Jason, because it's like, you get coaches and parents like, if you want to be successful, you got to do what the people that are successful are doing.
Like, I mean, you said it, right? Like,
okay. They take 6 months a year off. They take 3 months, 5 months a year off. Like, hey, yeah.
No, you can't take that much time off. You can't, and they're going to be set back. We can't happen. And then I mean, it's like panic. If like an injury were to walk in, a kid get hurt, and we tell them that they have to sit, like we recommend your kid not play. And that was devastating to the parents.
But the scouts aren't gonna see him.
Oh, that's gonna set them back. I mean, they're gonna be so like behind. I'm like, okay.
The kid's 11 years old. Like, he's got time. It's okay.
My goodness. Yeah. It's crazy, man. We got it every week. I mean, like I said, like the culture, you got a lot of disposable income. You got a lot of like things that you can put your kid in, because these travel teams, thousands of dollars,
right?
To field time or court access and travel,
it's about
state to state tournaments, and I mean, it's an investment. My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm glad
What
I
is,
grew up in that.
what are some of the things, I guess, what are some of the things, I mean, we've got three aspects, right? We've got kids, parents, and teams, coaches, right? Well, four things. And then we've got trainers, other trainers that are in the space, right? What are some of the things that we can talk to kids and parents about to say, here's what you should be looking for in your coaches and your trainers to make sure that, one, you're actually getting the best performance out of your kid, but you're doing it in such a way that they're not going to be mentally broken and they're not going to be physically broken either.
Yeah.
One is
Go ahead,
just
Jake.
the philosophy, right? That we've been talking about. Two, in terms of like methodology, simple is almost always better. And so and I've written many blogs about this, in the United States culture, which is really all I can speak on behalf of, our performance period is sort of inverted. And so, those of us, the three of us on this conversation, we all look back at our childhood, and there's all sorts of types of play and fun activities and some organized sports, things in school that were active, and all these different concepts came together over many, many years that gave us so much exposure to a wide variety of movements and experiences. And so, in the training world, in athletics performance world, we call that just GPP, general physical preparedness. And then as you build this wide base of movement vocabulary, to get to higher and higher levels of peak performance up near the sport specific part of training, required that base be very wide and varied. And so if a coach or a trainer is flipping that, and like maybe during a consultation learning that the team is a football team, and so we're going to do football specific training with kids, that's probably the opposite of what they need in many cases, right? We gotta, us at the youth level, our job is to, I always told the coaches that I would work with, the sport coaches, I said, look, I don't know anything about making a football player. What I know is how to make a great athlete that's hard to break and sustainable for many years. So how about I do that job, give you a better athlete, and then you turn them into this awesome football player.
Right.
And so the methodology is very, very simple, right? At my gym, I have different contractors doing different things around youth, some youth sports. And I observed the other week this group performing these extremely complicated weightlifting type, weight training type activities that, it's hard, if I were to get into debate with the coaches, I wouldn't have said I'm not going to call it wrong, but in terms of keeping risk low and reward high with these kids, I think they could have made much, much more simple choices that didn't look nearly as sexy, but would have done a much better job at creating the changes, physical changes we wanted in the kids.
Mhm.
And so that kind of frustrates me too in my industries, that it probably has become worse with social media, I assume. But
Yeah.
this idea of I gotta make this fancy kind of flashy experience occur, because otherwise it doesn't look cool enough. But push pull carry squat hinge, locomote hang. I mean, these are all basic human requirements. Jump. I mean,
And that's,
throw.
yeah. And the way you describe that triangle, starting with the general stuff, working into specific, is, I mean, we do that in any fitness endeavor. Really, it should be that way. If you have someone who's never worked out before, you're not going to have them come in and be like, okay, here's how you do all of these funky things, right? It's, can you squat? Can you bend over and pick something up without getting hurt? Because one of the things particularly, and this is what really drives me crazy, kids don't have the central nervous system development to control their body the way that they need to be high level athletes. They don't. It's not there. It hasn't been developed yet. So when you take a 12-year-old and you got him doing some funky one-legged bend over squat jump and turn sideways at the same time thing, they're going to get hurt. They need to learn how to do things with both feet on the ground for a while. They need to learn how to do the basic major joint movements. They need to work on what we call proprioception and feeling and understanding how their body moves at a basic level before we can get them into the specific stuff. Like, it doesn't do any good to try to teach a kid some high level specific football drill or baseball drill or whatever if they don't even know how to do a push-up or do a squat without doing it wrong and not understanding how to fix it. How many times have we seen a kid do a squat and we try to explain to them how to fix that squat so they can do it properly, and they have no idea what we're talking about? Right? Put your weight here, move your body here, take your arm and put it up, and they go out. Right? Take your arm and put it down, and they go up. Like, it's just like the connection's not always there. So you can't give them complicated stuff until they get that basic stuff done first.
Even the
Jimmy,
basic stuff.
Yeah,
I've seen it be very complicated. Just crawl. Right. You know, with a flat back. Crawl with a flat back. You know, half the group, if you have a group of 10 kids, half the group will do it well. Half the group are going to do it poorly. You know, you tell them to skip. You know, these basic moves that you said, like, okay, this is how you should develop. How we find development has to go through stages. You know, has to go through complexity, but then also you have to go through simplicity first. You know, has to have that and show you that you can do it. Show me, then we can move on. You know, if you can't, then there's no way that I'm going to have you pick something up and do it. That's I tell my athletes every time. Show me what this looks like. Okay, show me, prove to me that we can move on. If we can't, then we're staying. We're staying until we get it and master it. And that's the thing, is patience and having, like, as a trainer, you know, we're all looking at, you know, not going to say prostitute might be a bad word, but, you know, you might have to you might have to do something in a way, one, to get the job, right? Mm-hmm. You know, like, the kids aren't paying you, the parent is. So the parents have to look like this is valuable, right? So, because they make the decision. So you have to then not just go to the athlete, but then in this time, you got to go to the parent, and they got to be understanding the philosophy of where we build the trust and build this and catapult them to the next level. You know, working with middle school kids, you know, you got to make sure that the parent is on board, because that's ultimately, I mean, if you only have the athlete for, you know, 2 hours a week, the parent's going to have a lot more say on how the athlete is going to see and feel than the trainer. So, like, getting them on board, making sure that we speak to the parents to say, this is our philosophy. This is how we're going to go forward. This is how we're going to yield the healthy athlete, you know, moving into that direction that we want to go into. Don't worry about, you know, the next level or this. Let's see where we are today. And that's where a lot of times I think some trainers get pressured into doing these fancy things that think that might, you know, save their job, you know, and they're not actually able to do what they want to do because they feel like they have that exterior pressure of, well, trainer down the street is going to let me do this, you know? So, I mean, you don't want to lose your client. So people are like, oh, well, they like second guess their own philosophy.
Right. And that's challenging because proper development takes time. I like how you said patience. Proper development takes time. You cannot rush the process. And some kids will develop faster than others. And that's just a fact. People have to understand that. Your kid may not develop as fast as the other kids on the team. That's okay. They're only 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. They've got 5, 6, 7 years to figure it out. You're right. If you give them the chance to develop on their own and within their own ability, their genetics and all that stuff. You know, so adding to the list of things that as a parent, if you're looking for a program, an emphasis on, I like what you said, Jimmy, the technique and consistency before increasing intensity. You know, the movement Yeah, the movement has to be there consistently before you can increase the intensity. So parents, if you're looking for a program, if you're looking for a coach or you're in a program, evaluate and sit back and look, are they just going through their program because that's what's on the schedule? Or are they adapting and changing and modifying based on what the kids are actually doing and how they're progressing?
Right.
Right? Just because it's on the schedule doesn't mean it has to be done. If you've got something on the schedule because you thought maybe, a good trainer is going to lay out a program. Here's our 6-week, 12-week, 8-week, 3-month program, whatever it is. And they're going to say, we expect these things to happen within a certain period of time. They need to be able to adjust. If it doesn't happen, if they don't show performance at a certain level by the next benchmark or the next macro cycle, then something needs to change and it needs to be adjusted so that they can progress safely and be able to perform. So that stuff needs to happen. If that stuff's not happening, you need to find another program.
Yep.
You really need
It's like me having created that evolving athletics, like this team that I'm working with now. So they're the only ranked, so they're 14-year-old kids, and they're the only ranked um, baseball team in the nation in the state of Maryland. Um, and so they are the tippy top of the state and competitive across the whole country. And when I got them, they had spent something like 2 years with this other organization. And when I asked about the experience over there and the stories they shared with me sounded like the coaches and trainers over at that other place were basically trying to take the kids through like a fitness workout for time, like that they just got the kids together and basically for like a half hour, 45 minutes, we're just making them do a bunch of stuff, and like running them through getting really, really tired and exhausted. And COVID hit. The size of my facility made them interested in looking at something like I have. And then when I explained to them the difference in philosophy that I had, where I do not, that's not how I operate when I coach. The parents and the coaches were like a little unsure because it was so different than the last 2 years. And it makes sense. You're dealing with a team that's at high level for their age, so you're thinking like, well, whoever I select to give them, this group to, like, hopefully we got to make a good decision here, right? Because they're already at a high level. So I've only had them for 6 weeks, and we tested in the beginning, and then Bronson, you helped me retest the 6-week mark, and my partner got all of the data put together for each individual child and the team. And the 6-week experience was me. So they're a baseball team. They need to focus on developing strength, power, speed, coordination, right? And so, without taking up much time, it basically was like a bit of squat, deadlift type stuff, some pull-up-y things, movements related to throwing and jumping. But very, very basic stuff. I did like running drill related, like sprint mechanic type stuff. So when we retest them after 6 weeks, across the board, all the kids improved in almost everything. There was one kid who dropped a little bit in his deadlift, but the other 13 went up, by 20 to 40 pounds in their deadlift. And the shock from these parents and these coaches and even the kids, to see that they can go through a much simpler way of training that's far less exhausting and have objective measurements from beginning to end that show progress, and they're already at a high level. Like, how much cooler is that? It's so simple, but if I would have got, in my head about like business and marketing, right? Like the culture says, like, take these kids, these youth, through this crazy experience and get them exhausted because exhaustion equals progress.
Right.
I just proved it doesn't.
Absolutely.
6
Right.
weeks,
It doesn't
I
have to
changed
kill
it.
you every single time.
Yeah.
And so that we know, super compensation, we understand the concept of growth and progress actually happens when you're not working out. It's when you're working out that you're stressing the system and everything goes down. It's when you rest that actually you get better. So that has to be a component. That's where variety and kind of stuff comes in. How much does Jimmy, how much do you talk to? I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about nutrition and the impact that nutrition has on kids, and how much you know, I think is missed in the conversation, because kids can eat anything, right? They don't get fat. If they're athletic, they have a hollow leg, they can eat whatever they want, so they must be fine. Right. So,
Sure.
and I
Yeah.
think we know that particularly from a performance perspective, there's something wrong there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at, you know, kids at certain levels, you know, we'll just say if it's youth, you know, going middle school, you know, like 11 to 14, you know, the kids are like, they're wanting to understand their bodies a little bit more. They're growing, they're going through these stages of development. And what I chose, you know, I started to work with a team a few months ago, high level basketball, you know, and you know, I chose the first couple of sessions to stop what I was doing, go to a whiteboard, and then throw up knowledge of nutrition, just to see where everybody was. Give me a baseline of what people know, what these kids know, you know, and then that was where I started. And I made sure that was a priority. Like, guys, every time, what's up, Jay? Every time that you work out, it doesn't matter what you do with me twice a week. Okay. The 2 hours a week, you know, the other hours of the week, if you're not resting, recovering, and eating properly to fuel your body, you're not getting anything out of this workout. You're actually hurting yourself. So we went over the basics, just basic stuff, just to try to kind of shed light on this area, because, you know, I want them to be fully vested in their knowledge of this and not rely on school doesn't teach the right things. You know, so we have to come in and teach proper nutrition, you know, actual information that's going to yield a healthy athlete or healthy human, just to really develop, especially now, because they're in such a stage where they're absorbing so much, and you can get away with a lot, you know, because you're not going to see, you know, a lot of hardcore setbacks if, you know, you go down a certain road. But then, you know, week after week, month after month, year after year, you're going to see it. And this is, like we said, the foundation of it. So we have to make sure that we start out super early, make it simple, just spread the knowledge and really get them to understand, and do it consistently. Like I said, you got to make sure that you tag consistency on this. This has to be like every few weeks we go to the whiteboard and touch on nutrition. And I quiz them. Hey, what do you guys remember from what we talked about a couple of weeks ago? Tell me what this is. Tell me what that is. Okay. What were the recommendations that I said? You know, and I make sure that they repeat them, because if they repeat, then they soaked it in. Right. And then they're actually helping their parents.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, no, Jimmy says.
Yeah. I like what you said about being consistent, but there's the education that we give the kids only works if they get it back to the parents. So we need to work on a way to kind of get this stuff to the parents, right? And say, look, you know, these are things that you're looking for. Here's a way that you can kind of look at what's happening, because it's not just about quantity of food. It's not just about, you know, quality matters, what they're eating matters, when they're eating, that kind of stuff. So maybe that's something we can talk about. Jason, what do you do nutrition wise? Are you doing anything with Evolve right now on nutrition stuff?
I keep it real basic and simple. Like, you know, I send the parents and the coaches like newsletter type stuff related to this. And you know, my focus is usually on like whole food, you know, stuff, you know, hydration, minerals, you know, trying to eat to nourish the organ systems, rather than, you know, buying into, I just gotta track my calories and like that's the most important thing, right? So, you know, the message is mostly within your budget, and so that's another problem, right? Depending on whom I'm talking to, there may be constraints with financially that challenge the degree to which they can implement some of these things. So we openly discuss that stuff, right? And so within your budget, try and focus on real food, hunter-gatherer type lifestyle as close as possible. Get quality water, and focus a lot on the mineral content and the nutrients within the food as your selection, rather than flip the package over, look at the food label, and decide based on calories. It's like that's a dangerous road to go down if that's how you're going to base your decisions nutritionally on.
Okay. So basically, I think we've covered a bunch of different things. We've got, and I'll just say this for parents, if you're looking for a program, things that you want to be looking for are making sure that there is a focus on variety, and that there's a focus on training time and recovery time. You should not always be training. You want to make sure that there is a focus on technique and movement. Movement always comes first. Doing things well beats doing things hard every single time. You want to make sure that there is an emphasis on progression and development of your child as an athlete before a sport specific. So like you said, Jason, we want to make good athletes, because good athletes make good football players. Good athletes make good soccer players, baseball players, lacrosse players, right? If you're not a good athlete, you're not going to be good at your specific sport. You got to be a good athlete first. And then also a program that has some level of understanding what nutrition does from a sports performance and health perspective. And it's not just about eat because you can. Just because you're active. It's not about eat and then burn it off. You need to eat to burn. It's about eat to perform. And that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, we should definitely dive into that, like on a separate
we can do a whole
conversation.
Sure, absolutely. So if anybody's interested, Jason has a program, Evolve Athletics. Jason, how do people find out about that?
Evolvingathletics.com website.
Evolving Athletics. And then Jimmy, you do stuff as well with teams. Is that Mindful Performance Center? Like, what is that? Just your website?
Yeah, it's mindfulpc.com. Yeah. So I mean, we focus on just like well-rounded, to create holistic approach, to development for kids, and very similar to me and Jason's philosophy. Cool. So either of us.
Awesome.
Great research.
All right, guys. Appreciate the time, and we will catch up in a couple weeks.
Perfect.
Peace.